Welcome back to Commercial Breaks with Miss Education. I'm Miss Education. All right, confession. This smile is fake. Here's why. Last week, I taped episode 53, 54, and 55. I'm getting ready to upload them on YouTube. And like I said, I don't rewatch or listen to my episodes, but as I am uploading it, I just have to hear, when my voice starts, and I can't hear myself. So I'm like, no way. Episode 53, I can't hear myself. 54, I can't hear myself. 55, I can't hear myself. Rather, what I do hear are my children and son in another room. So someone must have connected my computer to a Bluetooth device that was outside of the room, and it picked up their conversation the entire time. Oh, you can't make this up. Okay, my lighting just went out. I'm not gonna lie. I was like, God, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. But here I am. So here we are. Let's do this. All right. I just had to quick prayer. So episode 53, Tough Conversations. This came up because I am part of a church group and a women's church group. And once a month, we are scheduled to put on an AY performance. That's a program that you do in the evening after, on Sabbath. People get together and they're just like uplifting or spiritually based conversations or interactions with people. And so we had a Zoom meeting trying to discuss, figure out what we were going to do. Someone brought up the old-fashioned and always present, let's put on a play. Another individual brought up having a conversation about immigration and the role that the church plays with what's going on with the migrants. And someone else brought up, well, let's have a conversation with the LGBTQ plus and how the church plays a role in that. I said, well, if you're going to do that, you might as well bring up racism. There's just so many topics that we should talk about in the church that we don't. And what I found ironic was just within the small group of us, there was back and forth and people were uncomfortable. And, one suggestion was like, well, we can't have these conversations until we have an expert who can come in and facilitate this conversation. And I calmly interjected and I said, I find it very fascinating that just amongst us, right? Who knows how many degrees we have between us, how many years experience we have. We aren't able to have this conversation, right? As adults. The problem is our children are having these conversations, right? And they're being led by the school system and the media. Now, if you have absolutely no problem with the school system and the media raising your children and injecting their moral truths, then you're all set. But I and many others do have a problem with the morality that the school system is trying to shove down the throats of our children, as well as the media. So the thing is, while we, the adults, the parents, the mothers, the Christians, whatever you want to label us, while we are sitting here arguing amongst ourselves, trying to find experts as to how to have a conversation about race, racism, and the LGBTQ plus community within the church, our children are being indoctrinated. And so I had to bring that up because I was disappointed that this is where we were. I was disappointed that we didn't have enough biblical foundation to have these conversations. We didn't have enough love. We didn't have trust. We weren't even willing to start. We're not willing to start this conversation. But our children have. They are. Right? We aren't willing to have the conversation with our children. You see, masturbation, premarital sex, homosexuality. We're not self-harm, suicidal ideation, depression, anxiety, all of that. We don't really want to touch those. And if we do, we have to hire an expert. We have to hire an expert when within the congregation, within the group of women, within the group of members in the church, you have experts. But And I guess what I'm trying to bring up is, as parents, and those of us who either will become parents or are in the sphere of influence to children, we need to be able to have these conversations with our kids, with the children, because the school systems are right. I like I said, I work in public school. I've always worked in public school, actually, and there's a push. There's a push to certain ideologies. There's a push to um, accepting non-biblical teachings and standards and lifestyles. You know, like I think I mentioned, like even where I work, when I go to the middle school, there's a huge poster before you even get to any of the middle school classes that says racism still exists, right? And again, I'm 12 years old. I don't need to walk into school every day and be reminded that racism still exists, whether black or white or anything. I just don't need that reminder. Um, Last week or the week before, whatever, was transgender day of silence, something like that. And you walk into school and there are posters everywhere, and everyone's wearing these stickers. If you're an ally, you need to be quiet. Transgender support day, something like that. And I'm like, what does this have to do with reading, writing, math, science? Like, what is me being quiet to show support to the transgender community? What does this have to do with my education? But that was a big focus. That was a big focus that was going on, right? And that's worrisome. Excuse me. And on a personal level, it's hit my home as well. The other day, a few Sabbaths ago, we're coming home from church, and one of my children, for those of you who know my children, I don't even need to tell you who, you'd figure this out. One of my children says, I don't remember exactly how this came out, but the essence, right? The gist of what he said was basically that men can have children. So I look at my husband like, did you hear that, or am I going great? Like, okay. My husband looks at me, I look at him. I look at my other child, he looks at me. Everyone in the car is confused except for my son. And on so many levels, this was weird because I'm his mom, and I don't hold back how I feel and the truth about this stuff, right? So I was like, is he not listening? And this is my son, love him. But of the two children, I have one who's like soaks in and listens, and he wants to know everything. I call him Fox News. Then I have another one who's, I call him CNN. He's just, he's there. And he'll listen when he needs to, when it benefits him. But he's not into anything other than what, a young teenager, preteen is into. So I was like, oh my goodness, here it is. Where did you get this? And he was like, at school, there was an article. We had to read an article, something about a man giving a birth. And I was like, okay. So we had to, again, break down what I thought was just common sense. But the school system has been able to penetrate our children in having these tough conversations, right? For the school system, this isn't tough. This is the agenda. It's for us. These are tough conversations. And it was about, listen, I clearly had to let the boy know that XYs don't give birth. The only ones who give birth are XXs, right? And he's like, oh, had to bring him back to center, had to check him. But I'm sitting there like, yo, my child was easily influenced. I need to do more. I need to do better. I can't just assume that my kids know the truth. I have to also be aware that there is a strong enemy out there, right? With the media, and with 6 to 8 hours a day for 180 days a year, they are not in my presence. Rather, they're being influenced, and there's an indoctrination that's going on with the system, with this matrix. I need to be more vigilant and more assertive and aggressive with my conversations with my sons. Question is, well, Jen, when is it too early to have these conversations? How deep do you go with these conversations? Well, then I had to ask myself, I had to answer the question, ask myself, well, what is it that media is putting out there for children their age? Or what media do my children have access to. I have to match that and beat it, right? What curriculum, what's going on in the school system? I need to match that and beat it. I encourage parents to, go and question, the health curriculum in public schools. Question that. Go and ask for a copy so that especially if you have kids in middle school and high school. No, even, again, I'm elementary. Even as young as elementary, they're starting these curriculums about gender and, love is love and masturbation. It's a lot, right? And what I'm telling you this is, whether you're ready for it or not, I'm saying get ahead of the narrative. Do not let the system, the matrix, guide these tough conversations. Again, they're not tough for the system. So do not let them guide these conversations, which then turn tough for you as a parent, as the adult. We need to be on top of this. We need to do better. We need to have faith. We need to ask God to give us the wisdom to have these conversations. And the truth is, the conversation is more uncomfortable for us than for the child. I mean, yes, the child's uncomfortable, like, ugh, I don't want to do this with you. But for us, it's definitely more disturbing, because the majority of our children have been exposed to this already. So they have a warped understanding, warped in our view, but exactly what the system wants, right? But they have a warped understanding of these topics. It is our duty to align and to bring them back to the correct path. Again, if you are not a Bible believing Christian, then for many this is not an issue. But it's an issue for me. This is an issue, and I'm speaking on it, and I'm addressing it. And it's sad to see that even in church we aren't able to stand up for truth and have these conversations and call sin by its name, with the understanding that we are all sinners and that God is powerful enough to change a sinner, to forgive a sinner, to change the heart, the mind of a sinner, right? And if we do not call these sins out, if we do not call in the name of Jesus and pray for forgiveness and redemption, then what are we doing? Then who are we? I don't know. Churches, like hospitals, are for sick people. Churches are for the spiritually sick. And so, if you come to the hospital and you have high blood pressure, AIDS, diabetes, cancer, I need to tell you so that we can treat it properly. It is harmful. It is malpractice for me not to tell you what is wrong. It's same with our spiritual lives, right? If we do not call these out by name, to then work on them and pray and ask God to come and intercede on our behalf, it is spiritual malpractice. Anyway, I'm gonna leave it at that, because now I gotta go do episode 54 and 55. All right, until next time. Commercial breaks with Miss Education. Have a great day. Bye.